Welcome to Couchonomics with Arjun. The show aims to unravel the layers of the fintech sector and the rapidly evolving tech startup ecosystem across the MENA region and beyond. I am your host Arjun, and I will be inviting founders, executives, investors, regulators, and other influential stakeholders to discuss and dissect the highs and lows of their own ventures and how they foresee the wider ecosystem evolve. Join us as we celebrate success and the spirit of risk-taking, the candid discussion that goes past a timid question and cautious answers. This show is produced in collaboration with Adyan, a reliable end-to-end payment solution that enables businesses to turn payments into a strategic growth driver. We're also brought to you by Lulu Financial Group, a global financial services provider headquartered in Abu Dhabi and operating in 11 countries. Finally, Couchonomics with Arjun Singh is brought to you by M2P Fintech, Asia's leading payment infrastructure company that enables businesses of any scale to embed financial products. So welcome to this episode of Couchonomics with Arjun. I'm your host, Arjun Singh, and today's episode is a first. I have three founders from Verity, and since the couch could not accommodate all three of them at one go, we're going to actually interview them all separately. Joining me first on the couch is Kamal. Kamal,
Right.
Welcome to the couch.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure is mine. I'm honoured to be part of the first three founder team to be on this couch.
You are definitely you're definitely the first of the three founder
Good.
team, and I think the lesson for us is
Get a bigger couch.
get a bigger couch. So there we go.
Yeah.
Right. But on a more serious note, right? I think you three know I'm sort of I wouldn't call myself an evangelist, but I'm definitely a fan of everything to do with junior banking, teen banking.
Sure.
I'm a father of two young daughters, and I find it incredibly hard to actually inculcate the value of money. I remember when I was growing up, and that was a long, long time ago.
Yeah, me too.
Money was very real.
Yeah.
You counted them in pieces of notes or coins.
Exactly.
And I remember very clearly that, when my father and mother gave me an allowance in whatever denomination it was very real. So I understood the value of money. Unfortunately, the kids, or at least my kids, don't understand that value, because for them now it is a click of a button or a wave of a card. While I'm big on this whole digital finance revolution, I'm also equally worried as a father. But before we get into my concerns,
Sure.
I'm very, very keen to understand, where does Verity come from? So how did the three of you come together? Where did the journey start?
Yeah.
What was the inception?
Well, look, I think the points that you touched upon are very much the points that I had going through my mind when I thought about this whole issue with money. Hopefully I'm around the same age as you, so I still remember the coins and the notes that we had to get for pocket money from our parents, and throughout the years I've touch wood, I've been quite successful. I came out of university, I worked in banking for many years in London, and then came to Dubai. In 2012, I gave up banking and started my own company here in Dubai, which is a recruitment company.
Okay.
Did relatively well. But then when Corona hit, surprisingly, is recruitment just, as you can imagine, no one was hiring. And I've just had I had a young daughter at the time, and she was just growing up, or she still is, thankfully, growing up. But, it got me thinking. When recruitment stopped, I'd realized that throughout my life, I had done most of the right things. I had a successful career. I'd started my own company, but I was still worried about what I was going to do for my next paycheck. How is my daughter's career going to be affected, or life going to be affected by this lack of income that I have because of Corona? And how long is it going to last? This was the early days of Corona. And it got me thinking, and I just had to kind of trace it back. And I traced it back to the experience I had with my parents. that talking about money at that age, and this was the 80s, right, was a taboo. My parents didn't talk to me about money. My parents didn't tell me what was right and wrong with money. They avoided the subject. I never knew anything about it. I never knew about the pitfalls that maybe they went through that I could possibly avoid, right? And I had been through them myself throughout my life. And I realized that, hang on a minute, I have to do something about this now. You know, I have to kind of look into this and see if I can help my daughter not make the mistakes that I've made. So by the time she gets to my age, you know, 25, 26 years old, she would be comfortable. So, and this all happened literally, it happened on a run. On one of, I like to run a lot, and this all happened on a run. So I went home and I kind of, you know, as you do, jumped on Google and started looking through and started looking for solutions. I got hits in the UK, I got hits in US, I got hits in India, got hits in South America, but nothing here.
Yep.
Nothing at all. So that was how Verity, the idea, started.
And so tell me, so I kind of feel for you. I had a slightly different upbringing in the sense that I guess my father was a bit of a money man, still is a bit of a money man, and is a bit tight-fisted too. There were a lot of values of money inculcated, at least in sort of my upbringing, in the sense that it was always very, very real for me. Did you actually run this thought that came across you on your run with sort of, you know, your friends? Was it something that you sort of went out and said, let me see if the others feel that way?
I think, look, the first thing I kind of did was, because I'd been an entrepreneur before, I was like, well, hang on, instead of running it through my friends first, let me run it through someone I trust who understands the startup ecosystem from a very different angle from that I looked at. So I reached out to Omar, who you'll meet hopefully next or after that. And I discussed it with him. And I said, look, do you mind coming and sitting in the office with me? Let's have a chat about an idea that I have and I want to run it past you. And so he came in the next day and we kind of backed and forth on this, and he's got a young nephew as well. So very quickly, I realized with him that, hang on, there's a real opportunity here, that this is not something that's available in the market. And we know from our experiences with, my brother has young kids as well, and his sister has a son. This is not something that's available, and this is something that we need. And this is something all our friends who we talk to need, right? They have their kids using their credit cards all the time, spending money. They you know, and these kids, as they get older, they have no idea. Yeah, you laugh, I know, because it's the thing. And all we heard was, as we did our research, you know, was it Fortnite and Roblox?
Roblox, don't even start there.
Exactly.
I've spent a fortune on Roblox.
Exactly.
And so obviously that's how Omar came into the scene. How did Dina come in?
Yeah, so funny enough, and this is why we believe, all three of us believe, that this is something to do with fate. A couple of days before, Omar had been on a Zoom call with Dina. They had met, I mean, they'll explain their story a little more, but they had met many years ago in Jordan on an accelerator. I think it was around 2011, 2012. They'd always stayed in contact. They'd never really done anything. They've always kind of, you know, got on the call, talked about things, and always said, let's do something. Now, the amazing thing about it is that Dina had just got back from New York, where she had a company that dealt with financial literacy for children,
right?
For girls in particular, between the ages of 8 to 13.
Okay.
So she had all this knowledge and all this experience and all this exclusive curriculum that she had built in New York. And because of various aspects, Corona and whatnot, she was back in Jordan without much to do on that particular subject. So when I had spoken to Omar, and he had spoken to Dina like 2 days before, when I was speaking to him, his brain was clicking, Dina. Right? And within 2 days, honestly, 2 days. I spoke to Dina the next day, and within 2 days she was in, and that was the three of us. And this was January 2021, I think. Yeah, it's been a year, just over a year now, and we've been together every day on Zoom dealing with this. Dina lives in Jordan. Me and Omar live here. So as well, Zoom calls every day, figuring this out.
And if I may ask, when are you officially launching?
Very soon. Very soon.
Right.
Yeah,
Dates
we're
are
very
not
close. Dates are not out, but very, very soon. We've been a long time kind of building this thing to get it to the point where we want to release a version that's, right. Right. And
I think it's important.
Yeah,
it's important.
absolutely.
And there's some good playbooks out there. I'm a big fan of Go Henry, and
Exactly.
and you'll excuse me, I'm forgetting the name out of the US, which is also done equally
Greenlight.
well. Greenlight,
Yeah,
which is done
exactly.
incredibly well. As a matter of fact, I actually opened, but I'm a Brit, so
me too.
I'm ethnically Indian, but I'm a Brit. I opened a Go Henry account just to actually see what it was all about.
Exactly.
And I was very impressed with the gamification.
Exactly.
Some of it to do with literacy
Yeah.
and education. But even in this market, it's fairly impressive, and I actually see. I'm a firm believer that the competition is not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Especially when you're coming up with a new idea or a new concept.
Absolutely.
Because the more you are, the faster the word spreads, and so therefore the market gets created
Absolutely.
at a faster rate.
Absolutely.
And what I've seen in the last sort of 12 to 18 months, and I'm not going to get into taking names. We've seen a couple of other players, if not more, come into the market.
Absolutely.
So I actually do think that there is a bit of a shift. There is a bank in Saudi, a very incumbent traditional bank, which also has launched their own proposition.
Yeah.
I actually was with the individual who launched that product, and when I got into a conversation with her, it was actually quite interesting to see some of the data they had collected through their consumers and so on and so forth. So but if I was to ask you for a trajectory perspective, and I'm not talking product at this stage, right? I'm talking trajectory, right? And I'm going to bring this sort of, I guess the hottest topic everybody talks about, which is sort of the metaverse, right?
Yeah,
And we really don't know what the metaverse is going to be, right? But one thing's quite clear that in some form or the other, gaming is going to be quite a key part of it, right? How do you see all of that fit in? And it's not a Verity question. I think it's more of a teen financial inclusion sort of play, if I may sort of say so. So where do you see this going?
Look, from the little I understand about the metaverse, this is a whole universe on its own. And in that, right, there are financial aspects of it. And with most of the, I don't know if it's players on there or users, I don't know how they're defined these days, but they're going to have to deal with some sort of finance in that world.
They do.
Yeah. Right?
Well, Roblox is just a small way to look at it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're going to have to get to that, and they're going to have to understand their own finances, as far as I know, just in the outside world or the real world, as just in the metaverse. So financial aspect of every child from the early ages has to start to improve drastically. And the big problem is financial literacy, right? And them not understanding of finance. Right.
So you give me a great segue, right, which is financial literacy.
Perfect.
And I guess with that, I want to say thanks for being here.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And I'm going to request Dina to come in.
Absolutely.
And I guess she's the
financial literacy
expert out
Absolutely.
here. So let me ask her a few questions. So
Perfect. Pleasure.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks
right.
A lot.
All right. So welcome to part 2 of the same episode. Which is Couchonomics with Arjun. I'm your host, Arjun Singh. And now on the couch, I have Dina. So welcome, Dina.
Thank you.
Right? It's great to have you here. And thanks for making the trip down from Amman, Jordan.
Oh, no worries.
And I must say, actually, Amman has a place, a very important place in my life, because not many people would go for their honeymoon to Jordan.
Oh, amazing.
Right.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I loved it. I'm a big fan of Petra and everything else that Amman has to offer. But this is not about me and my honeymoon. I want to get into... first, let me ask you. You've got a very interesting background from the little I've interacted with you. You obviously were in the US for a part of the time. You've been in banking. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about Dina.
Sure.
Before we get into Verity.
So I grew up in Amman, Jordan, and I was raised in a banking family.
Okay.
My great-grandfather established a bank in 1930, so you can imagine it's been part of my life ever since I was a child. but yet I didn't learn everything I needed to learn, mainly because I feel it's a dry subject that's difficult sometimes for adults to speak about with children. And so growing up, I actually didn't want to be in banking. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be so many other things. But I got interested in the subject from an economics class. Long story short, worked in banking for almost 10 years.
You did?
Yes.
In Oman?
In Oman.
Okay.
And also in New York, partly.
Okay.
And then I left that in 2012, which is interesting. Same year that Kamal left banking as well. There must be something in the sky, in the planets. I don't know. It must be alignment of the planets of some sort. And then I was trying to think of what I wanted to do next in my life. I knew that I wanted to do something for myself, and I wanted to make sure it was something I was very passionate about. So luckily, I was able to kind of bring together everything I loved, including education, children, creativity, because I also headed branding at the bank for many years, as well as my background of banking. And I discovered globally the problem of financial illiteracy. And growing up, my parents always spoke about the importance of education no matter what. They always said, education is the one thing that people can't take away from you. And so I believed in starting early on. And then I decided to focus on financial education for children from a very young age. Actually, when I moved to New York to start my startup, it was for children starting from the age of 5.
Okay.
And that's where my entrepreneurial journey started and my journey in financial education started. And
what did you do with the startup?
So in New York, basically, so when I was there and I was looking to see how I was going to address this in a different way, and I was exposed to the idea of subscription boxes. And I said, okay, maybe we can do a subscription box focused on financial education. And when I looked around and I saw there weren't many products that like really were educational and built on the education in in a way that, a curriculum way, so to speak. So I decided to create our own content. So I found educational experts, child development experts, and created games and activities that were going to be delivered through the box for parents to do with their children. So it was all based on experiential and play-based learning. And did that for a few years.
That's fascinating. I must introduce you to a fellow Jordanian. Do you know Jumana Al-Darwish?
I believe that sounds really familiar.
She does the Happy Box.
Yes, here, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
She's Jordanian too.
Oh, okay.
And she's actually a dear friend of the family and actually a good friend of mine. I think you guys should connect.
Great.
Maybe you can connect on Verity and Happy Box together. Sure. But you mentioned a good point, which is finance is an incredibly dry topic, right? And although I've not been a banker, I've been surrounded with them or around them or whatever the appropriate word is all my life. Yeah. So what do you see as the big challenges, right, with financial inclusion among the teens, and not just I would say not just the disenfranchised teens or who come from lower income segments, but even people who come from the middle class and upper middle class. What are the challenges in this new digital age with regards to financial inclusion or financial education or financial literacy?
Sure. Well, I mean, also Omar will speak about it a bit, but there's a problem of there aren't enough digital tools for day-to-day payments for teens right now. And I wouldn't just focus it on teens. I would even focus it on younger children in the family as a whole, right? So now we live in a very fast-paced environment. Parents don't have a lot of time to teach them this topic. And sometimes, although it's an important topic, it's not top of mind. But when they do hear about it, they're like, oh yeah, I have to teach my children about this because it's important. And I never learned. And as Kamal mentioned, I made a lot of mistakes in my life that I want my children to avoid, right? So that's one thing. And then it's how do parents speak to their children about it? From the different age range, there's specific subjects that they can absorb and understand at different levels, right? And so those are two things that I would say are challenging. And then as well with all these new things that keep coming up fast, right? You mentioned the metaverse early, NFTs, cryptocurrency, and it's not really understanding the risks of it, right? Because it's still all relatively new. It's still, some of it's not regulated. It's taking a higher. So that's another thing that I think teens should be exposed to or taught in different ways. And there's so many other things that you can, bring up. There's the influence of peer influence, peer pressure, the ability to think more long term. We live in an instant gratification society. Like we want everything now, or actually we want it yesterday.
Yep.
And as well, they have access to their parents' credit cards. So they're not really understanding the value of money because it's not their own money that they're spending, right?
No, and I think you're so true. And I'm going to actually get my younger daughter, who's 8 years old, no, 9. Sorry, she'll get upset if I call her 8. She's actually 9. To sit with you, right? And as a parent, I'll tell you what my problem is, right? I've not been able to establish an allowance system with her because she doesn't care for the allowance, right? The reason she doesn't care for the allowance is because she knows that most of her purchases are electronic, right? They're on her iPad. It's either with gaming or, either me or her mother will go buy her something by waving a card, right? So she doesn't see the value of allowances. She also doesn't actually understand the true value of money. So, what is the value of 100 dirhams is a bit lost on her, right? For her, it is, as you said, something which gratifies her, whether it is a 3 dirham 69 fill purchase of a skin, or she's downloading a brand new game, which is 50 dirhams. So here's a simple, it's a simple but very tough question. What are the options for us parents here? So what do we do? I'm happy to invest the time. Right. And I'm happy to kind of do whatever it takes, but it actually keeps me awake at night sometimes when I worry about the fact that my kids are growing up completely absent to the concept of value for money.
Right.
Now, it might change in the future, right? But as we sit today, my 11 and 9-year-old don't really understand it. So what should we do?
Well, I think the most important thing is for them to feel that they're spending their own money, right? So as long as you keep buying them things and availing your credit cards for them to buy stuff online whenever they want, they're never going to learn the value of money, because for them it's like, like you said, just press of a button and whatever, and mom and dad will continue buying things for us. So giving them an allowance and giving them an opportunity to even earn their own money, for example, through chores and things like that, is really important, because they will feel, they can see it visually as well on through the Verity app, for example. You can see how much money you have and how much you've saved for specific saving goals, and when there's no more money, you can't spend anymore. So for them, giving them a safe environment, or at least a controlled environment as well, where they can also make their own mistakes and start feeling the pain of not having enough money to do things that they want, is important. Now, it's also important as a parent to explain that you, as the parent, will always cater to their needs. So basic food, shelter, education, all that should be something that's covered. But anything extra, they have to earn it themselves, whether through saving the allowances or earning the money. So that's like one of the quickest ways. For kids, I would say 7 years and younger, which doesn't apply in your case at this moment, but we also, from an educational perspective and child development perspective, we say still use cash. Use cash, keep it visual, use a clear container for as a coin bank or whatever, so that they can visualize how much the money is and how much it's, reducing, as well as even for the goals that they're saving for. So having a picture in front of it themselves, just to look at and remind themselves, I'm working towards this, is important. But even through the app, you can put a saving goal with a picture, and they can, look and see how much longer, how much more do I have to save to be able to reach that. But the best way is really to get them to experience their own money experiences in real life, and to feel that it's their own money, and it's just.
I think you got it. You got it right. That's how I used to feel.
It's very different. I mean, I went to summer camp once, and my parents gave me money to spend, and just the decision of buying something was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have less money now to spend on other things. So you actually think twice, and you do make mistakes. And when you do make mistakes, you remind yourself later on, okay, I blew my money on this. And I did that in college, by the way. I learned a lot about money through college, and believe it or not.
We all did.
I mean, yeah, but it's funny because, people of different backgrounds still learn about money in different ways. And you would expect, I come from a banking family. Yes, the value of saving and being careful of what you spend was there. But it wasn't real until I had my own money. And when my parents transferred the money for me to decide what to spend on in college. So that also applies for kids.
I think you were a responsible kid. All I can say is I could never make it beyond the 25th of any month. So I had a constant, I actually had a guardian angel in my best friend who actually paid all my phone bills. And I think now that I'm sort of in my 40s, I forgot if I ever repaid him, but he's never come back and asked. But no, that's great. I think you mentioned Verity.
Yes.
What I want to get next into, and I'm actually going to put your chief product officer on the couch, is I want to get into the nuts and bolts of the product itself, of the solution itself. And I've got some questions for that. But thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
I think I've taken 2 or 3 things that I will do.
And if you ever need any more help, you can where to reach me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm happy
Well,
to
you're gonna soon have a conversation with my
perfect.
my 9-year-old. So let's see how that one goes.
Okay.
Why should I use the Verity app?
Well, let me ask you a question first. Do you get an allowance from your parents?
No.
No? All right. So do you do chores and get paid for them?
No.
No? Would you like to get paid for doing things?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. And do you spend money on stuff?
Yes.
Yeah. Where does that money come from?
My dad.
Yeah. And how do you spend it? Do you take permission?
No, I don't know.
No? What happens then when you use the money without permission?
They get mad.
So wouldn't you like to have your own money as an allowance and do chores and earn money, and then you can spend it however you like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Well, that's why you should use the Verity app. And also when you think about things you want to buy later for yourself or as gifts, you can save for them in saving goals in the app and then buy things that you want to buy. Wouldn't that feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does the app work? Do I use it for my iPad or my phone?
You can use it on both. Depends. Do you have a mobile phone?
No.
No? Okay, so you can use it on the iPad, but you also get your own card. Have you ever used the card yourself?
No.
No? Well, you get your very own card with your name on it, which you can use online or when you go out for stores, you want to buy food. It's all yours to use.
Okay.
Would you want to get the Verity app and the prepaid card?
Yeah.
Yeah? Would you
That's
tell your
nice.
friends about it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. What would you buy first? What would you save for?
I do not know yet.
No? Is there something you've been wanting to buy?
Not really.
No?
No, not really.
Are you taking any gifts back on your trip?
Maybe.
Yeah? Like
Maybe.
what do you think you might get?
Something that my parents like, maybe, or something that I like.
Yeah? Okay. Would you get a gift for your grandparents or your dog?
Yeah, yeah, I would get it.
All right, everybody. So I've saved the best for last. On the couch with me now is the third co-founder of Verity, Omar, who wears 2 hats. He is the co-founder and the product lead for Verity. So welcome to the couch, Omar.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us all 3.
I hope the couch is comfortable.
It's amazing, actually.
Matches your shirt.
Yeah. I didn't know that. So basically, we need to figure it out with the editing, probably.
So earlier today, you were mentioning that you guys don't have tags and titles in Verity. So talk to me about that.
So it was a conscious decision by us 3, right? And this is why you see us all 3 coming to the couch together. We see that every one of us gives a different angle and a different flair for it. So we don't have a CEO,
Okay.
for example. We're 3 co-founders. We have segregated the business into areas, and each of us caters to one of the areas and serves that area in specific. So my role is more around product and marketing. Dina is in charge of content and strategy, and Kamal is doing finance / investment and partnerships. So the idea was that there are a lot of startups that are challenging how a business world is currently doing business, right?
Sure.
And how corporates are doing business. But when it comes to their internal environment, they restructure it exactly, or they structure it exactly how corporates are.
So they conform.
They conform. And the question for us was, if we are challenging with a product, why don't we challenge with an environment that we think is safe, interesting, and very productive for the employees? So we decided not to go with the CEO role.
Okay.
It serves us well because we're three. So we're always going to have a unanimous kind of a decision, because 2 out of 3 will go right or left. So you will have a decision. And so far, it was an interesting ride. Of course, we had to calibrate ourselves because some of us come from a corporate background, others from an investment banking. I came from a accelerator startups background. So we adjusted to the way everyone works. And then we are working now as a team.
So is it King Arthur's table or Queen Dina's table?
So it's Queen Dina's, King Kamal's. I'm the
You're the minion among
the minion without a title.
All right. No, that's great. So I mentioned to Dina when we were speaking that I want to get into the nuts and bolts, and well, I'm not going to get into the technical nuts and bolts, but I'm very interested in the sense that, you know, where does the inspiration for the product come? Not necessarily the business idea. I think, you know, Kamal covered that very well and Dina added to it. So where's the inspiration of the product coming from?
So if you go to startups in general, let's just talk about startups, and I'm sure a lot of people are aware. So the startups usually either copy a product from abroad and then they tailor it to the local market, and it's happening a lot. We're seeing a lot of apps that are a copy of something that is
Me
happening.
Too effect,
And it's very so it's easier to implement because a lot of the logic has been already tested, and they have tested it with users and so on. What's left is just you calibrating it to the market. The other approach is just for you to go to the users and see what are the specific needs of this market, and then building the product from scratch up. What we're doing is basically, yes, we went and researched everything that is available, from Greenlight to GoHenry to some apps that are in India and in Latin America. We saw all of that spectrum. And then we came back to the drawing board and we created something, an experience that is for children, that is made for children and with the help of children. Banking nowadays is all catering to adults, right? So if any bank comes into this realm, they're going to change their app and change it into to serve children. What we wanted to do is to build the whole experience from ground up for children and make sure that whenever they come into this app, it feels comfortable for them to actually navigate it. It serves their day-to-day life rather than build it for adults and make it look like a children app.
So Omar, it's an interesting point. You just mentioned that, you know, it's an app which is built for children in their life. You know, I have conversations with a number of my friends, acquaintances, colleagues in the sort of banking world, right? The vast majority of them raise 2 points, right? And I think there's a certain degree of merit in what they do. One is, you know, how do you sustainably make money in an environment where predominantly these children are still codependent on the adult, right? Because at the end of the day, the product's going to be linked with one of their parents or guardian, whichever way it is. And the second thing, which is in the same vein, they say, yep, excellent idea, great. You know, it allows us to possibly hook the customer early in the journey. You know, I remember when I went to college first, you know, American Express used to have a blue card, a blue charge card, which was sort of given when you joined. I don't know what happened to that product. That teen banking, junior banking, youth banking, whatever you want to call it, is more of a feature than a product by itself. What's your take on that, right? So how do you counter that sort of argument, if I may call it that?
So let's start globally. So if you go and research everyone that is in the market, they've been there for a couple of years. A lot of them are still testing their business model and refining it. So they don't have a magical kind of formula that says this is how you solve teenage banking. And this is where we are at right now. So the whole purpose of us creating this is for us to figure out what is the business model for those people. So for children, as you know, expenditure is not as effective. So you cannot take anything on expenditure because it's not as high in terms of like how much they spend as adults. So anything in terms of transactional fees doesn't make
interchange income
doesn't make sense. Basically, the way that the global companies have solved it is for them to introduce basically a fee. like a monthly fee, where that monthly fee gives you more of viability / creates the business model for the startup itself. The way that we are doing it is we're introducing several services. We're not doing it as a teenage app only. We're doing it as a family app.
Okay.
In that way, we encompass the whole family, and we create some sort of a dynamic within the app that allows parents / children to talk about finances and see how things are, talk about them daily. And that encourages children to make the right decisions after all. So we're focusing on savings rather than spendings. We're also focusing on creating that sort of a dynamic within the family. And that, in a way, would allow us to actually do a different business model than what is ever that's available in the market.
So let me stretch that so a little bit more so that I understand this well. So I see the natural link between a child and the parent / guardian. Is the intention that you will slowly expand the product offering to include offerings for the adults? Is that the intention? So you'll have a combination of products which both, which would basically look at a family as a holistic sort of, I guess, whole and have products for them.
So that's the idea, is to expand the current product that we have and expand it probably to adults, or probably to not to the nuclear family, to people that are around that nuclear family, and make sure that the family transactions are being done in a smooth way.
Yeah, I think. Sorry to interrupt you. I think there's a thought which flashed through, and so I'm interrupting because there are a number in a family setup also. Even if you take the nucleus, there are a number of adults who are dependents too.
Exactly.
Right? Because not every family member is earning.
Exactly.
And arguably, yes, maybe the financial education is not required, but that independence is.
Yeah.
Right? Is that sort of...
So that's one approach that we're thinking of, but there are several pathways that we can go to.
Okay.
It's still early on, right? We didn't launch yet. So
I know you
the rubber didn't hit the road. So for us, it's the first thing that we want to do is launch that MVP, get feedback from the users, and then according to the feedback that we get from those users, start building the product in a way that serves them in the best way possible.
So you said MVP.
Yeah.
Which country are you going to launch the MVP first? UAE first,
yeah.
Right. And is that MVP going to go into multiple markets, or do you already have sort of, a product roadmap which is sort of defined for the first period of time, whatever that tranche is?
We have a product roadmap that is defined for 18 months after launch. And from that, we can actually change and do iterations to the product, basically, according to what we see in the market. And yes, we are going to several other markets in the region.
Why the UAE first?
So it's a combination of things. So we live here. So that was the easiest market, and we understand the business dynamics in the market. So that was the easiest place to start. Another thing is the ease of creating business here. So the market understands those apps, right? They're eager to try and download those apps and try them out. More than other markets in the region.
You're right. You got a large expat population, and you mentioned the West, you mentioned India. These apps do exist there. So arguably,
it's the expats, also the locals, also the Arab population. So it's a dynamic, and that diversity allows us to get different feedback, right? So we can cater to different kind of propositions and different groups of people. And then when we take it to other markets, we understand how to serve. If we understand how to serve the UAE per se, we will be able to understand how to serve KSA somehow, and then Egypt, Jordan.
So I'm not going to ask for the secret sauce, and you can refuse to answer this question.
You can. We can turn off the camera, and then
we can
take it forward.
We can do that. So what is the most effective way to the market? What is the most effective way to the consumer?
If someone answers that question, please give me their number and email. I doubt someone has there is no formula efficient for it. I think it's currently what's happening in the market and everywhere around the world is a trial and error kind of a model. Yes, you can have your hunches, you can spend here and there for you to test out. But if someone comes in and says, this is how it should be done, there's something fishy going on.
So there's no playbook which exists yet.
I don't think that there's a playbook, because each and every business has its own different dynamics, and each product is different in the way that you market it, then the way that you place it into the market, and the way that the end consumers are going to interact with it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Omar, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking out the time to meet us. Obviously, unlike Dina, you didn't have to come a long way.
Yeah.
But
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Not that bad. Not that bad. But, it was a pleasure to have all three of you. I wish you and the team the very best. I think the market needs this. I need it. So from a selfish perspective, I'm actually quite excited that, yourself and some of your other peers are going to come into the market and I think enrich the market with some newer products and newer solutions. So,
thank you very much.
Right. So with that, I'd like to say goodbye. It was a pleasure to have Kamal, Dina, and Omar on the show from Verity. I guess watch the space, because they're going to be launching their product very soon. I guess very soon being the word.
Yeah.
Right. With that, goodbye till I see you again.